Hello, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all here on behalf of TBL International and on this very beautiful, very bright, very on-Winterfell day. We welcome you to the Titanic Exhibition Centre. TBL is the management company behind the award-winning Titanic Belfast and SS Nomadic, which are over there, and they have brought Game of Thrones, the touring exhibition, which is in there, to Belfast. The exhibition has been designed by the event management agency GES Events in collaboration with HBO Licensing and Retail. This is HBO's first licensed product in Northern Ireland. It's a very historic week, of course, if you're interested in Game of Thrones. The exhibition is what we're here to talk about predominantly. I've been through it. It's absolutely fabulous. It has original costumes covered in mud and blood from the sets. It has authentic props, majestic settings, including two that have never been seen anywhere and never will be seen anywhere because they're exclusively for Belfast. There's the Winterfell Crypt, where you can see all the dead Starks. And there's also the Dragon Skull Pit, which is remarkable. Those have been exclusively added to the Belfast staging. What's in there, is the largest interactive and immersive Game of Thrones experience anywhere. You're very fortunate, you're getting a sneak preview. We're opening it to the public tomorrow. And when you get in there, if you all behave yourselves in the press conference, of course, please feel free to capture and share your experience using the hashtag GOTBelfast. Even the most nerdy, I promise you, even the most nerdy of all Game of Thrones nerds are going to learn a lot more about the characters and about the show in general and about the production, which of course predominantly happened right here in Northern Ireland. And that's a real point of pride for us, especially this week when we're celebrating not just the launch of this exhibition, but also the launch of the 8th and final season after an interminable delay of 2 years. We're only 4.5 days away of the launch of this season. It is quite simply the biggest and I think the best TV show in the world. And with this exhibition, we have the greatest tangible connection to it anywhere in the 7 kingdoms. So to mark both of those occasions, we've got some very special guests here today. And hopefully you can join me in giving a big Belfast welcome to them. First, please welcome on stage the Vice President of Licensing and Retail at HBO, Mr. Jeff Peters. Alongside Jeff will be Robin Stapley, the Vice President of Design and Creative at GES, who have built this wonderful experience. We also have an Emmy Award-winning costume designer who did so much to create the iconic looks of the cast. Michelle Clapton is here with us this morning. And of course, we have some of the stars of this show. Please welcome, first of all, Sir Davos Seaworth, or otherwise known as Liam Cunningham. Bran Stark is here, and I'm pleased to say he won't need a hand to get up on the stage. Please welcome Isaac Hampstead Wright. And the recently deceased Sir Mirren Trant, our very own Ian Beattie's here. Great, of course, to have Ian, especially given that the show has been here for 10 years and Ian only lives 5 miles down the road, so it hasn't been too far for him to go to get here this morning. But what a journey it's been for Ian and everybody else over the past 10 years. So that's our panel, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome them all just one more time. I'm going to have a quick chat with all of them initially, and then we'll throw open questions to the floor. Jeff, we'll start with you. The show is being broadcast currently in at least 170 countries at the last count. If you can name all those 170 countries, you're better at geography than I am. It's won nearly 50 Emmys. Just give us some sense of the scale of this from inside HBO looking out.
It's over 200 at last count, yes. And I cannot name them all, or very many of them, actually. When we think about Game of Thrones, it's just like living in a dream, really. I mean, as I think all of our fans feel the same way, this has become bigger and better and grander than anything anyone ever expected or could have ever possibly hoped for. It's changed the landscape of television in an incredible amount of ways. There's really no way to kind of overstate the impact of it on our company, on television in general, on entertainment in general.
So what makes this exhibition such a special part of that? Because obviously, as I said, this season 8 is the final season, but I suppose this proves that this is going to have a life way beyond the next 10 years anyway.
Yeah, we certainly expect so. The story's wrapping up soon, and we don't plan on leaving this world anytime soon. We want to kind of play around here, and we don't think our fans want to leave either. So this exhibition is an amazing opportunity for fans to come in and immerse themselves in the world of the show in a really unique way. This is the first officially licensed Game of Thrones exhibition in Northern Ireland, and it is bigger than it's ever been before. So it is literally the opportunity of a lifetime for fans to come in and see the props and costumes and set decorations and set pieces and weapons from the show up close in person and see the amazing level of detail that went into all of them.
Why was it important to bring it to Belfast?
We started this project a couple years ago, and one of our goals was to bring it right here and kind of celebrate the important and really vital role that Northern Ireland played in the life of the show. We're so thrilled to be here and really kind of celebrate and give back to this community because it's given us so much.
Thanks, Jeff. Robin, tell us about the making of the exhibition. How long have you spent working on it, and where on earth did you start?
We started with working with Jeff and his team, and it took about a year and a half to develop this exhibition, and then working with the filmmakers and Michelle and her team selecting the best costumes for this exhibition. And then really we have a whole team that really takes it. We started in Barcelona, and we went to Paris, and now we're very happy to be in Belfast.
It's absolutely fabulous. What are the bits that you're most proud of?
I'm really proud of the entire exhibition, but I think what's really special is we actually have unique areas that we've developed just for Belfast. So we actually developed an enormous skull area where we have the dragon skulls where, and I'd seen the show and I was completely blown away at the size.
Emphasis on enormous.
Yes, so you get to see them. And then we also have the Stark Crypt again. And what was wonderful, we actually were able to use the sculptors who worked on the show. A lot of them are local, so they came in, set them up for us. So again, it's really wonderful to have the talent right at hand to create those for us.
What was the biggest reactions that you witnessed from fans when this was put on in other parts of Europe?
Yeah. I think fans just, again, people love the show, but again, they don't really get to see it up close and really just to see the level of detail and artistry that goes into making the show.
Speaking of artistry, let's talk to Michelle. Michelle's, I went through it, I thought I knew everything about Game of Thrones, but Sarah, when she was giving me the tour, was pointing out little tiny intricate details on each of the costumes that I hadn't obviously noticed on screen. How long does it take roughly to design a costume? Sir Davos Seaworth's costume, for example. How long would it take you to design that and create that?
It's funny because, I guess it's really hard to say how long it takes to design one costume because they sort of go through different departments. So I might have an idea and then I might sort of develop it with one area of costume, like the dyeing, maybe we're dyeing the fabric, then we'll move on to something else, then we'll come back to it. So it's really hard to give you one, I don't know, I could say 5 days, I could say 5 weeks, I could say 5 months.
And where does the inspiration come from?
From the books and from the stories and from David and Dan and working with them. I mean, we thought quite early on that we didn't want to copy what the costumes were described as in the books. We wanted to make it much earthier and more real. And it was just a really collaborative process, really. But we were also given freedom to explore. So it's lovely visiting. It's like visiting old friends.
Is it?
Yeah.
And some of the detail that's on the costumes, like I was saying, is absolutely extraordinary, and it's beyond anything that people the biggest nerd would pick up from watching it on screen. Was there part of you just wanting to get the tiniest little detail in there, almost like hidden stories within the story?
Yeah, because I think, especially on TV, people are watching on huge screens nowadays, and people tend to watch episodes again and again, and I love the idea that they can find something new each time they look at it. And I was surrounded by amazing craftspeople. If I draw a picture, it stays a picture on the page unless I have great people who make it. So I mean, again, it was such a team effort, and why not celebrate the abilities of these people? So that's why we made it so beautiful.
Well, we're glad you did, and we certainly appreciate it. And certainly, you never get an appreciation for it on the screen, but when you go in there, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's talk to you, Liam. Thanks very much for coming up.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
I'm
Real
sure.
pleasure.
You haven't spent enough time in Northern Ireland in the last 10 years.
There's no such thing as too much time up here.
What does it feel like to be back surrounded? I mean, obviously, filming wrapped quite some time ago. What does it feel like to be surrounded by all the costumes and props again?
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, outside here, across the road is is the studio. Here is one of the biggest sets, if not the biggest set that we've ever built, and to have this right in the middle of it is just absolutely extraordinary. We just smiled on our way coming around the corner here. This is home and has been home for us for the last, for more than half his life, and a relatively large portion of mine as well. So it was wonderful, wonderful. And talking about the level of detail, there's a wonderful detail about Michelle's work in there. If you look at the wonderful Conal Thill, who plays Varys in this, his costume, and you have to remember that the man is the master of whispers and secrets and whatever. Just one, I think, incredibly artistic detail from Michelle was the fact that his hands are hidden. He had these long, huge, almost like wizard sleeves, so you couldn't see his hands. And that's a psychological thing for an audience, that they cannot see Varys's hands because he deals with whispers, and that's part of the genius of Michelle that does that, and that's to be seen in there amongst all the other magnificent things.
Varys, the master of whispers, your character, Sir Davos Seaworth, was much more blunt, much more direct, much more straight talking. Have you enjoyed playing that character? And when you come to an exhibition like this, do you realise that you could be Sir Davos Seaworth for a long time into the future?
Yes, it may be on my headstone. Listen, there's worse things you can have on your headstone than Game of Thrones. Yeah, he was a joy to play. He was described, somebody said he's the moral compass of the piece, and with a head like mine, you do play a lot of baddies. So it was gorgeous to just play somebody who's, I always thought of Davos as sort of representing the audience, trying to represent some sort of sanity in it. So I kind of felt I spoke up for the fans when I was in the show as well, as being in this nest of vipers. It's been a remarkable, unrepeatable, unique and extraordinary experience. Impossible to top. I should just fling myself off the rope bridge and get out while I'm ahead.
That won't be an option for someone like Isaac, who should be really at the beginning of your career. Isaac, you're only 20, but as you said outside, and as Liam just mentioned, you have had this enormous part for half of your life. What do you think looking back on it, and what on earth are you going to do going forward?
It's quite a difficult one to kind of fathom, because I've never known any different. It wasn't like I was an actor who had a career and this was just a job that I came onto and it was an amazing job. This has been all I've ever known. It's actually quite difficult to remember my life before Game of Thrones because I was so young. But I've got nothing but fabulous things to say about it. The people I've met on it, the time I've spent in Belfast, in this beautiful country, and yeah, the friends I've genuinely made for life and the experiences it's afforded me have been second to none. But yeah, it's a strange one, thinking, wow, I feel like I've just lived an entire life and I'm only just starting it, so it's all down from here.
I'm so jealous.
Let's hope not. Let's hope it's not all down from here. You've already seen this exhibition in other cities, but you haven't obviously seen some of the unique, exclusive Belfast editions. I'm wondering how you feel about that, especially given that one of them is the Stark Crypt, so it's basically all your dead ancestors in there.
Really cool to see that. Yeah, and these are only here in Belfast. These aren't anywhere else. So it's really exciting to see those.
And similarly, like Liam, you're obviously aware that this is going to take on a life of its own.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are, as Liam said, there are much worse things to be remembered for than Game of Thrones. It's quite a privilege to have that following you around, actually. Something that people genuinely loved. It's not like we're part of a show that everybody hates and is going to remember it because it was so awful. We're part of something that has changed the landscape of television and fiction, and it's been it's been a great ride.
Ian, you obviously still live here, one of our great homegrown talents. You've part of the show for 5 seasons at least. So you're very well placed to tell us what sort of impact it has made here locally, and what will this exhibition do to enhance that?
I think the luckiest day this province ever had was the day HBO decided to film Game of Thrones here. It has completely changed our landscape. It has given us a wonderful new tourist industry. It has brought training to our crews, to our electricians, you know, all the way across the board. The impact to our economy, I think, is incalculable. And it is the gift that keeps on giving. This exhibition is a stunning example of just how incredibly popular Game of Thrones is all around the world, and how it's captured the imagination of the world. I speak as a fan of the show, of course, because I actually think it's the best show ever on television, and I know there's a lot of people that agree with me. But the benefit to this province is just incalculable. I know from my perspective, the luckiest day I ever had as an actor was the day I got Sir Meryn Trant on Game of Thrones. It has changed my life completely.
Are you happy to share the story that Sir Meryn Trant wasn't the role that you thought you were getting?
Yes, that's right. I actually auditioned for season 1, and I was auditioned for a role. Of course, I didn't get it. And I'm thinking to myself, right, they're going to fly some actor over from England and put him up in a hotel, and I live 5 minutes away from the studio. So they called me back a couple of weeks later, and they auditioned me for the role of Sir Meryn Trant, and as I say, I was lucky enough to get it. And the role I originally auditioned for was Jory Cassell, who died in season 1, episode 5, whereas 5 years later, I'm still going. I will say, however, and I must point this out, the actor who played Jory Cassell is called Jamie Seaves, and he was perfect as Jory Cassell. When I actually saw him, he was just the perfect Jory Cassell. So the casting of the show has been incredible. And when you see an actor playing a role in Game of Thrones, you can't think of anybody else better to play that role once you see that actor. And that has been another part of the magic of this show.
Ian, thank you. I am feeling a little bit selfish standing up here taking all the questions myself, so we'll open the floor now to all of you guys. Just a couple of things that are off limits, if you could please respect that. This press conference is essentially about the exhibition. Any questions about season 8? Of course, are off limits, on pain of a flaying from a zombie Ramsay Bolton, or
no
from
spoilers.
Ian.
And then the room emptied.
Emptied. As a huge fan myself, I do not want to hear anything about season 8, and as you know, no one's allowed to talk about it. Obviously, there may be other legacy projects in the pipeline. We prefer just at this point to keep the focus on this. And the final thing that's off limits is Brexit, and that's just a personal bit because I'm so insufferably bored of it. So let's not talk about anything like that. Let's talk about this exhibition and about celebrating the great series that is Game of Thrones. I think we have some roving mics, do we? For questions? Yes, we do. So if you have a question, just pick up your hand, please, and we'll find you.
Hello, Lionel Moyes from Business Insider in the States. I am a big fan, so congratulations on season 8. I will not ask about it though.
Thanks.
What is it like for you as actors? You have worked and spent all this time working on this show, and we're watching it through the screen. But for you to come into an exhibition like this and to have a tangible moment with these scenes that you've created, with the characters that you've created, with the costumes that you've created, what do you think the difference of that experience will be for fans when they get to experience it in real life as opposed to through a monitor?
Well, it's incredibly different because as actors, all you hope for is to be given beautiful words to say in a beautiful story. And that's, if we're given that responsibility, that's exactly what we want. We're storytellers. What you've got in the exhibition is the kind of physical manifestation. We disappear, we're ethereal. And what you've got here is the record. And that's what's amazing. When you walk in here, there's a piece of cloth that makes you smile because it's part of a story that was hugely important for you. I watch this show at home with my family. You have to remember, people kind of think we come up here and we're here for 6 months or here for the 8 years. We do have lives, and we film our bits, and then we're shipped out and we come back. So I sit at home literally with my family on the sofa, and we scream and cry together and watch it. I'm a fan. And to have this, to get this close I mean, I even went into the new edition in here that the guys were talking about with the dragon heads on it. I've never been that close. I'm in the show, and I've never been that close to those. So that meant a huge deal to me. So I'm walking in as a punter, as the guys here, and it puts the hair up on the back of my neck. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
I mean, I think it feels almost selfish to keep all these things just to us, just to the actors and the crew to get to spend time with on a daily basis. We love coming in and working on these sets and seeing these props and dressing in these extraordinary costumes. And it's just such a privilege to actually be able to share it, because as has been said, there are so many details and fabulous little things that you just can't really possibly notice on screen sometimes.
Marjorie's wedding dress is fabulous. Michelle, I can't tell you.
And so
Have a look at the detail on the back of that. Each of those flowers were sewn individually, hand sewn individually, and they're absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely, just beautiful.
And there's something to be said for actually seeing it in person, rather than just seeing it on a screen, no matter how big the screen or how HD it is. Seeing these incredible things right up close, I just think is a really exciting thing, and I think everybody will love it.
I think one of the minor drawbacks, one of leaving at the end of season 5, but also two, you filmed, let's say, a lot of my filming was King's Landing, so I wouldn't get to the wall. I didn't see so many of the costumes that are in this exhibition I have never seen before, and they are stunning. The attention to detail is second to none. Like everything about Game of Thrones, the attention to detail is second to none. But these costumes are incredible. I must have stood for 5 minutes looking at Daenerys' winter costume. And I wanted to steal it and take it home to my wife, because it is absolutely beautiful. It's a work of art. So many of these costumes in this exhibition are genuinely works of art. And they are just stunning. And for any fan of the show to be able to come here and really get up close to them, I mean, there's a section where you can actually smell the wall. I kid you not, the smells of it evoke memories of what it was like being at the wall. And it is just the most stunning exhibition. I think for fans, they will love it. I think for people who don't watch the show, come down and see this exhibition. I promise you, when you leave this exhibition, you'll start watching this show.
I mean, like I said, it's like seeing old friends, and it takes you back, and each person, when we work with the actors, we don't just put costumes on them, we talk to them, and you talk about their character and listen to ideas, and so it's a sort of meeting of minds, and from that, we're there to help them, really, to aid them find their character. So when I walk around, it's just like these sort of disembodied, it's quite strange, but I'm so glad that people get to see the detail and the amazing work that people within costume do, and the dedication and the aging, I think, is particularly interesting on some of the sort of north of the wall outfits, the giants outfits. A costume isn't made when it's finished sewing. A costume is finished actually when it's aged and it smells, and it becomes that character.
Yeah, well, I've been wearing mine for so long it almost jumped off my body on the last day.
I think a few people have said that.
Yeah. It was glorious. I love putting it on. And I started, that was my goodbye, was when I put my costume on the hanger for the last time. I'm from theatre. Yeah. I know there's a lot of actors throw them in the corner. I'm from theatre. I hang mine up.
We always wash the underclothes.
Thank God for that.
I'm glad to hear that.
But I remember hanging my costume up for the last time and just taking a minute looking at the costume, because for me, that was when I was saying goodbye to Davos, was walking out of the trailer and my costume was on the wall. I was quite emotional.
Have we another question for any of the panel? Just here, I spotted this gentleman first. We have a microphone here, please.
Here we are, at the front.
To the front.
Mike.
Third row. In the lilac shirt.
Hi, Bill Manwaring from QCon. Can I say I'm a huge, huge fan. Thank you for the last 10 years. I'm looking forward to the next 10 years. Those of you that aren't from Northern Ireland or maybe didn't know Northern Ireland, what's your most exciting, interesting, or most liked part of this country been since the Game of Thrones experience started for you?
Wow, gosh, that's hard to pick. Do you know, I've just noticed all this stuff up here about all the various locations. And I mean, if you didn't tell anyone that was Northern Ireland, you'd be like, oh, that must be New Zealand or some, you know, exotic place somewhere. How can one small country have so many extraordinary different locations, which are only about 20 minutes out from a city centre? I mean, I think the locations has definitely been something that I will remember forever. Some of the places you go to, you just find yourself thinking, wow, this is totally awe-inspiring. But for me, I think it's just the people of Belfast and the city of Belfast. It has genuinely been a home from home. Flying back on the plane here yesterday and flying over all these familiar sights, it just brings back so many memories. It's like I never left. And yeah, especially watching how Belfast has changed even just in the past 10 years in terms of the cultural scene that's emerged, all the new lovely restaurants and bars and whatever, all these new things that are creating this kind of metropolitan city. It's just been a great place to work for the past 10 years.
Yeah, there's definitely the same for me. You come up, there's a sense of palpable sense of optimism, and I think the show has whatever percentage you think it is, but that has added to it. And the dark history that was here is coming out. The place is blooming, and for us to have this show here and be part of that, you know, that transition is joyful as well. Yeah, it's glorious. I was doing a publicity thing for something else, and we were at the Dark Hedges taking some photographs, and there was a bus pulled up, and it was like the United Nations coming out of the bus. There was people, and two people from Sweden ran over to me. They just couldn't believe I was there. It was just coincidence. I don't live there, and they just went, "Oh my God!" And it was just. And it's just that wonderful thing. I've bumped into people on the street near near the Europa, and it was two gorgeous American people who had just got married, and they were honeymooning in Belfast, on Northern Ireland, because their romance had developed while they'd been watching Game of Thrones. And they said, well, why don't we holiday? So who would have said 5-10 years ago that Belfast was a honeymoon destination? It is. It's a wonderful thing.
I have to say, for my part, obviously born, bred, buttered here, and it's still home to me and always will be. But I do remember, I mean, when I was doing the show, virtually all of the interior shots in Game of Thrones are shot across the road. And certainly my favourite moments were those times I spent in the throne room, because it is the most stunning set. You know, and I was lucky enough to be there many times. My other overriding memory is I was walking my dogs in Stormont, and a busload of Chinese tourists pulled up, and they recognized me, and every one of them came up for a photograph. And you were thinking, this would not have happened 10 years ago. The transformation to this city, the transformation to this province, has just been an incredible gift to all of us. That's what I think.
And I think I'm the same. I mean, I love the fact that all these amazing locations are so close, especially when you have to get there at like 6 in the morning to start dressing. But also just the friendliness of the people and how willing they were to get involved and work so hard on this show, and always so pleasant, you know. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, that really helps when you're being dressed in a heavy cloak and a pair of old leather trousers, and they're still really positive at the end of the day as well when they're soaking wet. So that really helped us in costume.
Thanks, Michelle. Last few minutes, guys. Any other burning questions? There's one here and there's one at the back. Whoever can get the microphone quicker can have the floor.
Hi guys, Ed Finn from Travel Times. Thanks to HBO for choosing Northern Ireland as your Game of Thrones territory. I think you did a good job there, well picked. My question is to Michelle. Michelle, if you don't mind me asking, what was your favourite costume that you designed? Or is that like asking you what your favourite child is?
A little bit like that, yeah. Funnily enough, it's a group of costumes. I really liked the Unsullied, just because sometimes an individual costume is interesting, but when you actually have to design something and then make hundreds of them, you've got to be pretty sure about it. And I remember reading in the book, these helmets with spikes on, and it could have gone so wrong. And so I went to a museum, I think in Florence, and I saw all this sort of Indian armor and Persian armor, and just researching into it. And then also with those costumes, we traveled like to Morocco, wherever, and anyone has to put them on. And people tend to be different shapes, so it was really interesting to create something that when they put it on, it created the shape. So I think they were one of my favorite looks.
Another question here at the front. This lady was prepared to shout if she didn't get a microphone, so we got her one quickly. She's earned her spot.
Sorry, I'm from British Forces Broadcasting Service, and I mean, everybody in the military loves this show, particularly for the battle scenes. Do you feel like you've now been through the military a bit?
Yeah. Well, for me, I did the Battle of Blackwater, which was the end of the first season that I came on, which was glorious, and then went on to, I didn't do Hard Home, but I did Battle of the Bastards. That was tricky. It is a military campaign, and I think the Battle of the Bastards is actually based on, I think two different, isn't it? It's two different actual battles. There's one in Sparta, or Persia, or somewhere like that. So they are based, and we did have huge military advice on that, about the behaviour. But I have to say, the people that we had, the extra supporting artists, are the most extraordinary bunch, and the vast majority of them were from here. And you also have to remember, we were not talking about the last season, these ladies and gentlemen had to keep stum, hundreds of them, thousands of them probably, over the seasons, and they were all fans, and they have been so discreet and didn't want to spoil it for people, and they behaved as a well-trained force, and very quietly. I'd have them in the CIA or MI5 or any day of the week. They were brilliant.
I would have to say my character was never in a battle, and if he had been, he would almost certainly have been killed very, very quickly. Speaking as an actor, I would have killed to be at the Battle of the Bastards. I still think to this day that it is the best single episode of television that I've ever seen. I've seen it 8 or 9 times, and every time I watch it, it gets better. So, but that's this series for you. I would have killed to be at the Battle of the Bastards.
See, we're all fans. Told you.
Again, Bran has never really been at the forefront of much action in Game of Thrones, thankfully.
Final reflection on this from Michelle, and then we're going to have to call it a day, Michelle.
People actually got so into their particular groups of people that sometimes when extras or supporting artists came in, we said, okay, you're a Starcher, they go, no, I'm not, I'm a Tully. And like they would actually have them tattooed on their arm, and they actually became those people. They became really dedicated to which group they were part of.
It's fantastic to know that the cast and the crew are as enthusiastic about the show as the rest of us fans. Thank you very much to our panel for now. Please thank Jeff, to Robin, Michelle, Liam, Isaac and Ian. Thank you, guys.